In the late 19th century, Ferdinand de Lesseps was the Elon Musk of his day, but with a better hat. He had just successfully carved the Suez Canal through a flat, sandy desert, which is basically nature's way of asking for a ditch to be dug. So he looked at the globe, saw the skinny bit of land called Panama, and thought, how hard can it be? It's just a bit of jungle. He proposed a sea-level canal, no locks, just a straight shot through a mountain range. Because geology, tropical diseases, and torrential rain are famously cooperative with ambitious Frenchmen. The investors threw money at him, because who needs due diligence when you have pure, uncut optimism? The French arrived in Panama with heavy machinery and even heavier self-assurance. But the real welcoming committee wasn't the locals. It was two microscopic project managers named Anopheles and Aedes aegypti. Mosquitoes. The French believed malaria and yellow fever were caused by miasma, bad smells from the swamp. So their solution was to build beautiful hospitals, like Ancon Hospital, where the legs of the beds were placed in little pants of water to keep ants out, creating, in a stroke of accidental genius, thousands of perfect five-star mosquito nurseries right next to their sickest patients. The death rate became less of a statistic and more of a daily schedule. As the bodies piled up, so did the debt. The French company was bleeding money faster than its workers were bleeding everything else. They spent a fortune on things that looked good on paper, like 15,000 hospital beds for a workforce that rarely exceeded 10,000. Why? Because most workers died too quickly to ever check in. Back in Paris, the company propped itself up with bribes, corrupt politicians, and what we'd now call creative marketing. It became the biggest financial scandal of the 19th century. By 1889, the whole thing collapsed, leaving behind a legacy of rust, 22,000 graves, and a very expensive hole in the ground. A decade later, America, under the subtle guidance of Theodore Roosevelt, decided it wanted a canal. The only problem was Panama belonged to Colombia, and Colombia wasn't thrilled with the American offer. Roosevelt's solution was a masterclass in not-so-subtle foreign policy. He essentially sponsored a revolution. On November 3, 1903, Panama declared independence. An American warship, the USS Nashville, just happened to be hanging around to prevent Colombian troops from doing anything about it. Suddenly, America had a brand new, very cooperative country to negotiate with. Funny how that works. The Americans learned one thing from the French disaster: dying is bad for productivity. They put a doctor, William Gorgas, in charge of sanitation. Gorgas had seen the work of Carlos Finlay and Walter Reed, who proved mosquitoes, not bad smells, carried yellow fever. The Canal Zone became the site of the most extensive, obsessive-compulsive cleaning project in human history. They drained 100 square miles of swamp, fumigated every home with sulfur, and poured 120 tons of pyrethrum powder into bug-infested areas. They even put screens on every window and fined people for having standing water in a flower pot. They were fighting a war not with dynamite, but with fly swatters. With the mosquitoes mostly under control, the Americans could focus on the main event: arguing with a mountain. The Culebra Cut was an 8-mile-long trench carved through the Continental Divide. The geology was a nightmare. It was like trying to dig a ditch in a pile of wet sand and gravel. For every cubic yard of dirt they removed, another half-yard would slide back in. Landslides were constant, unpredictable, and deadly, sometimes burying entire work crews crews and their gigantic steam shovels. They used over 60 million pounds of dynamite to blast their way through. It wasn't construction, it was controlled planetary demolition. The American effort was a triumph of engineering, but also a marvel of systemic segregation. The workforce was divided into the gold roll and the silver roll. Gold roll was for the skilled white American workers. They got good housing, paid sick leave, and were paid in gold. The silver roll was for everyone else, mostly black workers from Barbados and Jamaica. They got barracks, terrible food, a fraction of the pay, and were considered entirely expendable. The official death toll of 5,609 mostly counted gold roll employees. The thousands of silver roll workers who died? Their records were kept using a brass check system. You died, someone turned in your number, and you were replaced. No name, just a number. So, what's the final score? The French effort? An estimated 22,000 dead. That's about the population of a small city. The American effort, officially 5,609. But that number is a beautifully curated piece of public relations. It conveniently ignores the thousands upon thousands of non-American, non-white laborers who were never properly counted. Some historians estimate the true total for both eras is closer to 30,000 people. That's over 500 deaths for every single mile of canal. It's a staggering price to pay so a cargo ship can save a few weeks on its trip from New York to San Francisco. Progress has a price, and it's usually paid by people whose names are never written down. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds.